Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently March 22nd, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 87. It appears that I started my stream, I started talking, and my stream didn't actually load. It was actually not doing anything at all. And it's always hard to tell because, I love talking, and I always feel like I'm communicating with tons of users. I see 1,111 people on here. It's a lucky number. I'm feeling cool about myself. And then, of course, it's a shame when one of the viewers messages me and says, yeah, it's actually been black for like 5 minutes. And then I feel very isolated and alone, getting super in to just my dialogues with myself and just staring at this camera when no one's looking back at me. So it's great to see that finally all of you are here. We have some fantastic action going on today. I'm going to try to just repeat all the jokes that I had planned, and hopefully they don't sound as canned as they did the first time. But, yes, the video's still running, so that's great. Oh, fantastic, just double-checking that. First of all, I have a free copy of God of War 3, and the soundtrack, because for any of you who didn't know, my professor at USC is the studio director of Sony Santa Monica, so he's a studio director for God of War 3. So, of course, he tells us all sorts of cool stuff about it, and, about 2 months ago, I got on here and I said, guys, I've just seen the sickest thing I have ever seen in my life, but I can't tell you about it, and I know that you know, or I know that all of you think that you know what I'm talking about, but you don't. Of course, I knew everyone thought that I was talking about StarCraft 2, but of course I don't know anything about StarCraft 2. I'm not, like, in the know on that. It was actually God of War 3 that I got to check out, so it was pretty sweet that had a little opportunity, so that's what I was gloating about that many months ago. And just the tech on that game is unreal. The coding is just super sophisticated, so I'm really pumped about that. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of Terran vs. Terran action. I'm super pumped about this. For any of you who didn't get to see yesterday's daily, my girlfriend made a special cameo appearance, not intentionally. She was actually practicing Protoss vs. Zerg right over there on my extra table. And she lost a shuttle with 2 Reavers in it while she was playing. So right in the middle of it, well, I'm just like, oh, let's pontificate on the Colossi and Protoss vs. Terran. Her shuttle dies, and she just goes, oh shit! And she just like screams, and I'm like, because most of the time people assume I'm here by myself, but actually there she is, just training away. And it's good to know that there are in fact some girls out there who have felt the same pain that we nerds have felt, having things happen like losing the shuttle with 2 Reavers. Telling all your workers to go mine at 1 mineral pact because you accidentally selected them all. That's another good one. Having all your mutalisks chased after a dropship only to have all your mutalisks die when the dropship has 1 hit point left. Such are the things that I've endured many times in my life. So, going right along, we're going to be checking out a Terran vs. Terran today. It is one of the most amazing games that I've ever seen. And I do want to briefly touch on some Terran vs. Protoss issues that have come up, because a player, I believe by the name of Koiru, who's watching the stream right now, asked what my opinion on Terran vs. Protoss was. Because most of the people on the US servers think that the Protoss player has a huge advantage, and people are always like, oh my god, Colossi are so imbalanced and they're so BS. But personally, I think it's way skewed in the other direction. Terran have a way easier time than Protoss. I actually think it's getting increasingly difficult for any Protosses to take any games off a reasonable Terran in that matchup. Just because Terrans now they know they can get away with early expanding and can get 3 barracks up very, very, very quickly and just get a bunch of Marauders with Stim, which means that if you were going for Colossi, by the time you get your first Colossus out, you immediately die to a rush. So it's kind of interesting the way that matchup's sort of shaping up to look like. Either way, it's encouraging players to have much longer, more dynamic games instead of just, I got a Colossus and all you have is Marines, so I won. But hopefully I'll have the chance to talk about that more in depth with some of the other stuff. Without any further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into the game. We're going to be watching Jinro, who's known as Frozen Arbiter, on the TeamLiquid.net forums. He's a superhero. He was honestly one of my absolute favorite people in the history of StarCraft. Like, I used to train with him a ton in StarCraft 1 for tournaments. He helped me a whole bunch in WCG 2007, on those tournaments especially. And he's just like the nicest guy in the world. I mean, like, when you're training with him, you'll win, and he'll be like, oh man, that was such a good strategy, and I was playing well too. Or if he wins, he's like, yeah, I won, but here's some other things to think about. Just completely objective, not like, he's not the sort of person who's like, haha, I'm the man. So I'm super excited to see him doing really well on the European ladders. And this is actually from the Zotac Cut number 4 that I did a cast for on Sunday morning. This is Jinro in the yellow Terran pieces. And of course, yellow is my color of choice in StarCraft 2. And down here we have Lucifron in the blue pieces in the blue Terran. Now, for the most part, I think that most people think that Terran vs. Terran is going to be this really slow matchup. In StarCraft 1, Terran vs. Terran was completely dictated by tanks. The fact that tank lines were static, the fact that tanks completely negated Medic Marine, right? Just demolish it so fast that you just had these static lines versus static lines, and then I would drop on your siege tanks, and then I would kill them, but then I'd have to siege, so you would back your thing up, and people got a little irritated by that. And in StarCraft 2, a lot of people have opened up with tech-type builds. They skip the Marines a whole bunch, and they go straight for siege tanks, because siege tanks do kill Marines in one shot in this game, so it seems like Marines are even less viable in this matchup, but it turns out to be pretty much the exact opposite. That these games are super dynamic, and actually this morning I was practicing a ton with Jinro in Terran vs. Terran, trying to do a relatively fast mech strategy, and he just overran me with the sort of stuff that we're going to see in this game right now. So both players doing seemingly normal things. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up. Yeah, we're actually on fast. Whoopsie daisies. So Lucifron spamming to make sure that SCV has as much adrenaline in the system as possible before building the barracks. And this looks pretty normal to me thus far, right, when I was watching this game. Now, one thing to note, I think that the Europeans are currently ahead of the other servers in terms of just skill level and the way they are just developing really cool builds. So this was the first time I'd actually even been on the Europe server at all. Zotac, the Zotac people lent me European accounts, that way I could watch and stream. This is the first game that I'd actually seen, and in this game I was watching this and I was like, well, okay, whoopsie daisies. Okay, we don't have any refineries down yet. A lot of people like to double gas at 15, so that way they can get a pretty decent economy money-wise going, but then just get a whole bunch of gas and slam out some tanks. But as we're going to see here, there's still no gas, and I'm looking here at Frozen Arbiter, at Jinro, there's still no gas, and I was kind of like, huh, this is interesting. Perhaps they're going for just some sort of early expand, after which they will go tanks. How mistaken I was. So notice immediately rallying outside the barracks. We have some little sparring going on, some SCV jousting, and it looks like Lucifron came out on top. By the way, Lucifron is a 2400 level Terran, and Jinro is a 2300 level Terran. So they're both super, super high, and Jinro's record's oh so pretty. And look at them, both going straight for this Xel'Naga watchtower. I mean, look, if I just select this barracks, it's rallied right here. And I believe the same might be so for Lucifron. Yeah, look at this. There's going to be a ton of micro. And this, I think, is one of the most important examples of not thinking like a designer, instead thinking like a player. The fact that we're going to see a ton of SCVs involved in all these battles. So let me actually just come back briefly and say what I mean by that. So many people have been so excited for StarCraft 2 for such a long time that they've been on forums discussing about all their different ideas of, ooh, what about this and that, and oh, maybe Blizzard should adjust this, because they didn't have the opportunity to play it. But now that it's out, people are still saying things like, oh, I definitely think that this huge change should be made and all this adjustment should be done. And that's fun to sort of exercise from time to time when you're not actually sitting down and playing in the game. But when you're playing, you need to think, what are the rules I am being presented with? And how do I operate optimally in this rule set? So, for instance, units target workers over everything, right? And that, you know, a lot of people were just like, oh, well, that's sort of dumb. It makes early game micro not fun anymore, because in Protoss vs. Zerg, if I'm Zealot Rush you and I'm bringing probes, the Zerglings take out the probes immediately, whereas in StarCraft 1, you had to be very careful and selectively micro your lings to kill those probes. Here we see that what these Terran players are going to do is just bring tons of SCVs in every single battle, like 10, 12 SCVs, and they're actually so strong, they have a lot of life, they can take 10 shots from the Marine, so they just absorb a ton of damage, and it becomes really difficult to micro properly. I mean, already, look, just with one SCV, Jinro's getting a really big advantage. Look, only, it looks like one shot was sustained by this Marine. This SCV's taking quite a beating, but, you know, no big deal. And how does Lucifron's respond? By bringing out a whole bunch of SCVs of his own, and this is going to be very difficult for him to deal with. Because, of course, Jinro's just constantly trying to come back up here, manage this Xel'Naga watchtower, trying to target fire but back up so he doesn't take too much damage from these Marines. And this game was super action-packed, so I'm going to take time to pause here and examine other things. These players are expanding right now to their expos, and I want to make sure I keep this unit counting station up for much of the game. Because we're going to see, even though there's not that much variety with units, the way that Lucifron uses his SCVs is just phenomenal, right? So Lucifron's early expands here. And is adding on more barracks here. I am in a cast. I will tell this person to go away. In cast right now. I'll talk to you later. So, what I should probably end up doing is just casting on my other accounts. That way people don't message me. Just asking about my keyboard. And no, I don't. I have a Dell keyboard that's actually really crappy. Anyways, we see this microing going on here, and I think what's interesting is that because Jinro had control of this early on, he was able to take this super special gold mineral patch, which is going to help him a ton. And one thing I want to say right now is that he's going to be sending all his mules to this gold mineral patch, which I think is very smart. You get 42 minerals for each of those returns, which allows you to support a lot of barracks. Look at this. No gas yet from either player, just opening Marines, expand into more Marines. And someone might say, well, why not just make some extra barracks and do some sort of rush early on and just crush your opponent? The issue is that SCVs are just so incredibly strong. Notice that there's not that many SCVs here because he brought 4 into battle earlier on. And here we have a little bit more micro action going on, pulling stuff back, some good control here, taking stuff out. Go Jinro, my hero. This game was just so intense at the time. Like, already there's just so much micro. I remember talking to Jinro after this game, and he was like, you know, it's the best game I've ever played. In StarCraft 1 or StarCraft 2, I'm done. It's just like, yeah, gonna retire now. Both of them getting just 1 refinery right now. By the way, Morrow, who I've seen do this build quite a lot, very effectively, he actually, according to Jinro, who has sent me a replay and I haven't actually watched it, he held off an early expand just like this from 1 barracks when his opponent went 2 barracks with reactor, just because bunkers are very expendable and SCVs are just so powerful. So I think this just blows my mind that this is even possible in this matchup. Right, so continue to expand here, making certain to rally up here to this watchtower. Making a lot of Marines right now, and getting 2 gas. I think this is going to be the key difference that we see in the divergence of these 2 players' openings, is the fact that Jinro gets 2 geysers, and that Lucifron sticks to 1 geyser all game long with only 2 guys in the gas. How's that for not valuing gas units, man? Seriously, just mass Marines. And I missed a little bit of action here, so I'm going to back it up. But Lucifron's transfers his SCVs, as you should. And then when he wants to move out, look at this, bringing like 5 SCVs into this battle. That's so cool. Yeah, and look, just Jinro immediately has to back up. You can't even like turn around and try to fight this because his Marines will just eat your Marines alive. Because all your Marines will be busy shooting those SCVs. Believe me, I tried against Jinro this morning and it did not go well. So here's some interesting periods already. Getting this tech lab suddenly is really scary because we already know our opponent's advanced to here. We have this vulnerable expansion over here. Is that an okay decision to do? I mean, the answer is yes. We're going to see that it is. But notice that there's not some sort of massive halt of Marine production. Actually adding on another barracks, continuing to make stuff. But actually, it's probably okay once you have a decent Marine count to halt on production because you have SCVs, which of course are so incredibly helpful. And Lucifron's going to try to advance, try to do a little bit of magic here. Of course, let's hold down our fancy schmancy Alt key to try to see what we can see here. And see, look, already, remember how we just mentioned, be careful when you're getting these tech labs because suddenly your opponent can push towards you. Look, just like a 10-second timing window has opened up. And look, already it's costing Jinro. Super intense, in-your-face action in Terran vs. Terran in StarCraft 2. Really incredible to watch. So trying to do a little bit of micro, and of course that's a little bit of a glitch with the rally. This guy said, no, you don't actually want me to walk here. You want me to shoot first. No, AI, please. And of course, once again, this isn't something that you should complain about when you're playing. You should instead think, how can I exploit that? Or how do I need to be aware of that? So we have this Marauder coming out, and it's doing some decent damage. But one thing to note is that getting too many Marauders isn't the key, right? A lot of players just assume that that is the essential component for Terran armies, but really the Marines, as we're going to see Lucifron's exploit, are really just way strong if you can incorporate a whole bunch of SCVs into them. Lucifron's only has 1 tech lab right now and instead favored getting a reactor for more Marines. One thing to note that a Marauder costs 100 minerals, as do 2 Marines, but the Marines build in 20 seconds as opposed to the 30 seconds for a Marauder. So you can get a lot of units out and be way aggro if you get these Marines out. If you get these reactor out. Jinro, of course, has this gold expansion, so he's able to get another barracks up early, and we'll probably be getting some reactors soon. And I'm going to try to keep as close an eye as I can on these tech labs to see when STIM gets researched. So here's some more SCVs here. Yep, Stim going out very, very early. I think this is the one reason that Jinro didn't lose to a lot of these pushes here. So what probably a lot of you are saying is, oh, well, Jinro has clearly won the build order war. He has this expansion here. And Lucifron's only has his natural. So Jinro's way in the lead as long as he can keep this thing alive. We're still going to see Lucifron's do some absolutely insane pushes on along this left edge. So now that Jinro knows he's been scouted, it's time to advance forth. And of course getting a fifth of barracks, because he can afford it. Remember, all mules are going here. So here's some shots going down. And of course, at the time I was like, yeah, Lucifron's, he's not going to have, too much trouble defending this. But look at this. Lucifron's bringing in all these SCVs. Look, 7 SCVs there. And one thing to note, notice that Lucifron's is ahead on the SCV count, and Jinro's a little bit behind, and Lucifron's has been much more active about bringing them off, which means that Lucifron's big emphasis in this game is actually constant SCV production as well. A lot of people seem to focus just on constant unit production, but considering how important a piece these SCVs are in the battle, I mean, it's pretty funny to see that, you need to treat that just as important as keeping those Marines constantly pumping out. So here's a nice little surround that Jinro does. Getting in there, trying to do some surrounding action, barely lets him out. And look at this, bringing the mules back. Oh, that's so cute. Taking some stuff out. I probably would have preferred, instead of bringing these units up here, I would have preferred bringing the units here. Because we can have a wider arc here, and our reinforcements, if they come from above, we have this size of an arc. And also, our SCVs can come down a lot more easily if our units are already right here. That's the one issue I had here with this little defense. But of course, this is completely foreign to me. I mean, literally, yeah, this is on a European server, but I mean, like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And look at this, just Marines, only Marines. Look at that, 19 Marines. And if we go back here, is getting reactors at all these barracks. I mean, Lucifron's literally only making Marines. And if you are very aggressive, you save money by not having to build so many depots. So that's how Lucifron's is able to pull this off and bring in tons of SCVs as well. And I just want to hold down the Alt key every time we get in a battle, just so people can look and see how much damage these SCVs are soaking up. And just how critical it is that you are very, very aggressive with these SCVs. So look at this. Just 5 barracks pumping out units. Oh, I guess 3 of the 5, but these guys are eventually very useful. But the stim that Jinro's going to have... Jinro actually has stim right now, but... oh, no, he doesn't. There, it's almost done. But when Jinro does have stim early on, he doesn't use it as much early on as I think he should have. Yeah, look at that. Absorbing a ton of damage. Coming back in here again. Look, these SCVs... are the only ones taking damage. These SCVs still taking damage. And now, okay, now we're actually going to be able to fight the units. And look, already Jinro has a much smaller force than he did at the start of that SCV bout. I'm actually going to rewind after this battle's done. Let's actually rewind just a little bit, just 20 seconds backwards in time. Okay, so let's just count this, right? So this is 7 Marines and a decent number of Marauders. What's that? 10 Marauders. And here we have... looks like that is going to be 18 Marines. What is that? 18 Marines? Yeah, and then we have 2 Marauders. So it looks like a pretty even force, but the fact that there are like all these SCVs that have gotten in there, let's just hold down the Alt key when we resume. And just show how many of these units are dying. Pretty much all these Marines are going to evaporate very early on. They took a ton of damage. And these SCVs sort of running home. I'm going to have to get back in the fray again. So I've pretty much just been describing the sort of micro situations that that we're seeing in this matchup. The fact that these players are being really aggressive. In particular, Lucifron's is even being aggressive to the point where he gets to cut supply depots. Look at this. 3 barracks with reactor, only 1 with the tech lab. And I think this is a big mistake to be queuing this much, especially when your units are so important at this stage in the game. And oh god, the expansion looks like it's going to die. And isn't this incredible? It was 5 barracks way early into just recently got 4 barracks. But the fact that Lucifron's has brought so many Marines, so many SCVs with those Marines, he's doing a ton of damage. So I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about transitioning, right? Oh, look at that nice little shift-click setup there. In terms of transitioning, what is the next step going to be? I mean, you can't just expect to go Marines all game long. And I want to bring this up now because we are going to see Lucifron pretty much just go Marines all game long. I mean, look at this. Still only 2 in the geyser. Jinro's actually pulled or eventually will pull one guy out of gas here, but the fact that he has done a little bit more by getting these tech labs, getting stim, he beats Lucifron way far to combat shield, so that ends up helping out a bunch. So taking out the Marauder, some nice target firing there. And even though there's not really that many SCVs, the fact that 2 mules just landed here, I mean, just gives you so much money. Look at that money just shoot up. Bam, bam. Just flying up thanks to those muleys. And of course, everything we will note is rallied here. If we just select all these, yeah, look at that, with that Spider-Man web going everywhere. Lucifron still being really aggressive, bringing 4 SCVs into this battle. Once again, it looks like it should be really one-sided. It looks like Jinro should just crush this, but the SCVs are just so threatening. Look at this, it's just 4 Marines and 2 SCVs. That's unreal. I'm going to, every now and again, I'm going to come back here and check to see if Jinro's doing any sort of teching. Because he eventually does that. And look at this. That command center is so close to dying, getting the stim in there. Trying to stim, oh my god. And of course, I'm sitting here, I'm rooting for Jinro, because man, I love Jinro, man. That guy's awesome. So I'm like, Jinro! And he's like stimming. Sometimes he's actually forgetting it in these battles. And I'm just like, Grr! I mean, only mules mining here. That's it. And meanwhile, Lucifron's, I mean, if you look at this SCV count, I mean, Lucifron's is actually ahead in the SCV count. But he is the one who's been actively sending SCVs nonstop into these battles. So that's what's super cool to note, is that this differential seems counterintuitive. It seems like Lucifron should be the one low on SCVs, but he's actually up because all of his pushes are so strong that he ends up actually killing SCVs that didn't even want to be in the battle in the first place. So look at this, bringing good old number 4 SCVs in again. Every single battle he's bringing these forwards. And look at these, just taking the brunt of all the damage, okay? Look at this. Look at the life on the ones in the back. All green. All of these are green. And only a little bit of damage taken by, it looks like 1 Marine. And instead, all the SCVs were taking the shots there. And a little bit of a messed up rally point. And see, this is part of the reason why I was saying I really think the defense point should be here, having guys here. So that way the reinforcements can come from above. This is looking like a much better arc for Jinro. And coming back here, forgetting some supply depots, now that things are getting a little bit calm. And look, yet another huge push coming in here. Stim. Yeah, look at that nice concave. That's going to be real difficult to deal with. Very nice play. Jinro's finally looking like he's stabilized. I mean, he's barely holding this off, but to be honest, with these rich mineral expansions, that's okay. I mean, that's fine. Barely holding it off is great because you're already so far in the lead. Another stim here. Yeah, see, by pulling over to the left, the guys come from behind. Now, I've done a lot of looking just here, and I actually did that in the game, so let's actually return back here to Lucifron's base. He's actually slowly getting some more money, so what did he do? He added on 2 more barracks with reactors, and is just continuing to slam out a ton of units. Still only 2 guys in this gas geyser. Jinro has been barely holding on with these 5 barracks. I mean, this is phenomenal to see. This many Marines being produced, like constant Marines. I don't know if these guys end up producing for a little while. But I mean, the fact is, he could afford to build them. I mean, at the very least, he could afford to have built 1 and constantly made stuff out of it. And still, he's ahead on the SCV count. That, to me, is incredible. And only now is Jinro starting to be able to afford units again. Or, excuse me, SCVs again, because he's just dumping everything into units. Look at how aggressive these players are. Oh, yeah, this is a funny part. Look at all these Marines here. Where did they come from? There's actually a rally point that was a little bit screwed up in Jinro's base. Yeah, see this? Yeah, there's the guilty. Well, yeah, look at that. Whoopsie daisies. Yeah, that's one of my favorite feelings in StarCraft 2, or excuse me, actually in any strategy game, when you're like, oh, look, I found 12 tanks. Cool. And now they're coming into the battle. That would have been a lot more helpful earlier, don't you think? So now, this was one of the most brilliant parts of the entire game. He's killing this off. And of course, your first immediate thought is, oh, well, I guess he wants to kill this off so he can push into his main? Well, that seems... I guess that seems okay. I mean... You know, if he goes down, then this means that Lucifrons can come up here and take this out and then come down and defend his main really easily. I don't know, it seemed a little bit weird. But instead, what Jinro's just doing is he's killing this off so he can go to this Xel'Naga Watchtower and just have a spotter there. And he's going to try to plant some units up here. And look, Lucifrons has been pushing aggressively up here, and now the question is, it looks like everything's evened out a little bit. I mean, I know it looks like he has, you know, a ton of Marines, he has a ton of SCVs, like that 42 to 30. But we're going to see some more interesting tactics go on. It's not just a slugfest out in this corner start to finish. And as we go back to the base, constantly producing as many as he can, look, queuing up more. And hey, look, more guys coming up here. And this is probably the worst feeling in the world when you put a spotter here. You're like, alright, this will let me spot units. And it's just like, oh, there they are. Uh-oh. Time to get in place. So here's the stim coming forward. Let's slow this battle down. Look, okay, so here, all these guys are stim, but look at these guys up here. Look at all these units. Look at all of them shooting at these SCVs. Did you guys see that? This is remarkable that this is the way this matchup works. Or not the way this matchup works, but that this is an AI that you can exploit. Look at all these guys up here. All of them are shooting SCVs. Incredible. And Lucifron's just has so many units. He's got 35 Marines to 20 Marines. I mean, yeah, sure, he's behind my 5 Marauders, but that's just so much life in terms of the Marines, and considering how quickly they shoot. Jesus, barely holding it off. So let's go ahead and speed it back up again. So, again, once again, the question for Lucifron's is, should I just keep pounding this expansion? Should I just keep sending stuff here? Looks like he's feeling reasonably confident about it. I mean, it's so close. And if you think about it, any battles here are removing SCVs from gold minerals. So that is something that you're pretty comfortable doing, making sure that your opponent doesn't get too big of an economic lead. It's 61 food to 64 food. Still super close. So here it was like, oh my god, is Jinro actually going to win right here? He was holding on all game long. He's just going to push back. No, SCVs are way too strong, right? Like, and then, of course, I need to be very careful to rephrase that. I like to speak in, like, big exaggerations and, like, a super hyperbolic sense, but SCVs are very strong. They're not too strong, they're not imbalanced, but because of the way the AI is functioning, the fact that units value SCVs over units, you can use them to defend tons of stuff because they are light armor type, which means that the only thing that really crushes them is Hellions. Marauders and Marines aren't going to be killing them that quickly. So it's like a super key component when you're doing this one barracks fast expand into mass barracks style. Those SCVs are a key component of this army. So Jinro does a smart thing that ends up being something that bites him in the ass. He moves units up to this high ground to shoot down anything continuing to try to pound this expansion. And for once in the entire game, Lucifron's just says, oh, well, I'll just go kill Jinro's main. Now this is a technique that I talked about a ton in StarCraft 1, which is a cut-in, which is where anytime there are two bases, so in this case for Jinro, it's this main and this expansion, rather than just sending units here to hit this expansion, or sending units here to hit this front, you first send them here in between. So that way, what happens is you can push Jinro's army down this way, or you can push the reinforcements back up this way. And of course, if he has a small number of units up here, and most of his units up here, that means his army is split up. So your army is concentrated, so it can take out either the small reinforcements or the larger force a little bit more easily. So once you've cut in between the expansions, then you choose which one you want to go to. And we see that this can be used real effectively here by Lucifron's. So coming across here, he just did a little bit of spotting. But he's going to come right up here, and then he's going to go up. Why not go along this way? Well, because it cuts off reinforcements. It splits everything in between. And look at that. It's 2 free Marauders. That's pretty huge. Not even any stim needed to be spent there. And of course, that's kind of bad to lose your own reinforcements there. And of course, he has to run back around. And it looks like, at this point in the game, I was just like, oh yeah, Jinro, he's fine. Yeah, he's clearly going to win. I was wrong once again. As we see Lucifron start getting really aggressive. Now, even though that attack didn't work, we're going to see something like it work similar a while later, but it's still useful to think about that this is a really important piece of terrain, not just because it cuts in, but also because there's this nice shrubbery here. And no, I mean that seriously. The shrubbery, you know, units that are behind the shrubs can't be hit unless you have vision of them. I actually encountered this problem against Jinro this morning when I was trying to get my siege tanks. And see, look, what's so cool about the player who is concentrated in terms of bases, I mean, look how Lucifron's has this expansion and his main super close together. He has the ability to move up here, be aggressive, you know, draw Jinro over here, and then just attack up here. Always exploit that advantage whenever your opponent's spread out. And look at this, all these SCVs just going at it by themselves. Look how slowly they're dying. That's pretty remarkable. So, I mean, Jinro engages here. And it's like, yeah, no big deal. But then look at this. Completely annihilated. How did that happen? Isn't that cool? Okay, I just want to state that for the record, how many people are out there who are like, Micro's dead in StarCraft 2? It's all about making units. Yeah, I bet. Look at Terran versus Terran, man. I'll throw the horns out for that one. Let's just rewind that a little bit. I mean, those SCVs did a pretty decent amount of stuff. Oops, I'm rewinding way more than I need to be. There we go. That's about right. Yeah, so here we have the SCVs here from Lucifrons. Here they are. Just holding down the Alt key a little bit. Yeah, oh, it looks like this was the second stim that Jinro had spent on these Marines. This is one thing that's really nice about being the aggressive player, is that even if all your units die, you're up against slowly weaker armies, right? Look at these. All have 35, 20 hit points, something like that, whereas all these have like 45 or so hit points. This is actually something that did not occur to me until I paused it right here to look at these hit points. Wow, that's exactly how that happened. It reminds me of this very famous game between Midas and Savior, where Midas did a medic marine rush to Savior's sunken colonies and accidentally stimmed twice, so all his marines died ultra quickly. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. Is Lucifrons, yeah, you had those SCVs there that were being quite helpful, but by being so aggressive and by moving a lot around here, Jinro stimmed to try to chase stuff down a little bit, and eventually ended up with this very squishy army that was easily killable. So when this happened, it was like, oh my god, Jinro's actually going to lose this expansion. And one thing, just an ode to Jinro's skill. Let's actually rewind that just a little bit. This is actually so epically kick-ass. So here he is moving up here. Slowing down, look at the energy. Look at the energy. Oh my god, look at the health. Okay, so he's going to come up here. He's target firing it. See the energy? Oh my god, it's gonna die. He's shooting it. Oh, it has 100 hit points. Oh, muling over here at the new expo. Oh my god, is that not neat? Was that not cool to see? Did you just see some pro gamer action from Sweden? I think you did. And here's a mule also kind of coming out here in the fight, proving that he will be a warrior for his 90-second lifespan. And this, I think, is one of the most important aspects about what we've seen right now. Yeah, Lucifrons was able to barrel down the front constantly, just continue to get into his opponent's face, and eventually killed off this expansion. But he did it just by devoting 100% of his resources to outrageous quantities of Marines, and accidentally queuing up too much stuff. Jinro, on the other hand, managed to sneak in a starport, and you're going to see that this doesn't come out, or just comes out like the perfect second. Not a second too soon. Here these SCVs are sneaking over here. You know, this is kind of a weird spot to be in because Lucifrons did see those, but can he afford to run all the way over here and kill this off? Maybe he should just send 2 Marines or something. 2-3 Marines to do a little bit of kill in action. Instead, what he decides to do is, now that his main is mined out, and rather than transfer those SCVs to his natural it's almost mined out, he's just going to go for the good old all-in attack. And here's Jinro pulling back. This expo's going to fall. Excuse me, this barrack's going to fall super fast. Got the starport here, and look at this. These medvacs come out in the nick of time. Holy crap. And these units are up here. It looks like they're going to have a... They're going to be stimming once again. Yeah, look, that double stim. Oh my god, does that weaken the army. So Jinro just backs up a little bit. And look at how yellow and green Jinro's troops are. And look at how close this is. And then the SCVs barely come in from the back. So I think that this, what we're seeing right here, is going to be the new key in Terran vs. Terran. Players, I think, are starting to realize that this can be standardized. Barracks into expansion, into crazy aggression from lots of early barracks. But the real strong players are going to figure out ways to get these little bonus boosts. I mean, I didn't emphasize it in this game, but Jinro got this combat shield upgrade way ahead of his opponent. He got the stim upgrade way ahead of his opponent. And this is what allowed him to pull ahead in certain key battles. And now here in this final battle, the fact that medvacs are here are really saving the day. And this is, of course, Jinro's only running expansion. And we have Lucifron's trying to expand to the right side now. But this game is pretty much going to wrap up right about now. But isn't that neat to see? And there's a lot of players who I've seen try to sneak in extra... Oh, actually not a lot. There are several players, because once again, I only learned about this on Sunday. There are some players who I've seen try to sneak extra tanks in, like I saw DeMuslim do that in his games against Morrow. Excuse me. And DeMuslim, who tried to get the tanks tomorrow, just rushed in right when he saw the tanks starting to get built and like won immediately. It was really crazy how strong these Marine Marauder combinations are, because tanks are just so expensive. So here, rushing in here, doing a little bit of healing action, still having trouble with those SCVs. Look at this. Look how low-tech this army is. It's just Marines and SCVs, and it barely loses this final battle. So I think that that is a super incredible illustration of how I can knock my camera over. There we go. That's an incredible illustration of the strength of incorporating this SCV AI glitching. The fact that you can get away with defending these expansions so well. And also, it emphasizes how you can be aggressive with the SCVs as opposed to defensive. You know, you can do all sorts of cool stuff like that. So Kappa says, in a very aggressive match like that, what are the cues to tech up to the next tier of unit, i.e. starport or medevac? Well, see, normally it would be, okay, when you're about even and neither of you are motivated to attack, you should start teching. Or, for instance, like, if he has 4 barracks and you have 4 barracks and you get into an attack, and your 4 barracks worth of units, let me try it again. So, you get into a big battle, and at the end, you have a handful of units left, like a decent number, like let's say 12 Marines, but you both have 4 barracks. You know that he is going to be behind on units, so there's no way he can really kill you, so you can go ahead and tech safely. And even if you miss a handful of units, you can get extra tech structures up. And he has to scramble to make more units, because if he tries to tech as well, I mean, you're just going to go kill him. So in a match like this, it's going to be hard, though, to actually tech in Jinro's position, which is kind of why it's funny that he ended up coming out ahead. I think it's purely just because of the gold minerals. But, man, like, the fact that you have that gold expansion that's out in the middle of nowhere really means you need to get the units out there to constantly reinforce it. So let's go ahead and take some more questions. I'm trying to check this out. So, Terran Micro in StarCraft 2, this is from Kadred. Terran Micro in StarCraft 2 is shaping up to be incredibly important, positioning Marines behind Marauders, using SCVs as meat shields. Do you have any tips, exercises to help optimize Micro in StarCraft 2? Well, this is a tip that I use a whole lot in terms of just general learning, which is to not worry too much about Micro in the game. Like, don't try to think, what is the best way to Micro right now? Instead, rewatch these games and watch it slowly in the battles, and then think, I need to do this when I'm in that situation next. So, for instance, in the Terran vs. Protoss that we watched yesterday, I looked at the... what am I talking about? Oh, yeah. In the battle, I noticed that my Marines were in front of the Marauders, and I was like, man, I really need to make sure that I'm doing that. I need to make sure I'm doing that. I need to put my Marines behind the Marauders so that they, you know, take extra damage. And that way I can keep the Marines alive a little bit longer. And then what happens when I'm in the game next, I've told myself that that's what I'm going to do, so that's a lot more helpful. So there's another question, which is from Koiru, the gentleman who asked the same thing about the, who asked the Terran vs. Protoss question at the start, who says, do I think the +1 upgrade would have been easier or more effective? Whoopsie daisies, scrolling right past it. Let's go ahead and just mute the chat because it's getting impossible to read all these questions because it keeps scrolling up. Koiru says, Dana, do you think +1 upgrades would have been easier and more effective to sneak in than the more expensive medevacs? I mean, I think that... See, upgrades are always a really weird thing, right? Because it's cheap to throw the engineering bay down and to get a +1 upgrade started, but it takes so much time to just get there and to start being able to reap the benefits of your +1. Whereas with the starport, you know, once you're teching to it, when the medevacs are done, they're done. You can use them straight away, and they give this huge benefit. The question I would want to ask is, does it cause any critical upgrades? Does it mean that my units kill your units in 1 less hit? Well, it seems that my Marines are going to kill your Marines in 1 less hit, but at the same time, I mean, are you going to be okay in that long period before the +1 upgrade finishes? Because that time is such a huge concern. I mean, we see Jinro getting 5 barracks. We see Lucifron's getting 6 barracks, 5 with reactors. If you're just a little bit behind, you're just going to get eaten alive. So I think that that is the danger of this situation. I think, for instance, if you were turtled and you had a bunker up, so that way you could get the +1 upgrade without dying, or if you had some tanks up, or something like that. In those circumstances, it's just like, yeah, totally, I'm a huge fan of upgrades. Upgrades are very useful in timing attacks. When you're in these sorts of intense micro battles, it's very difficult to time that properly. I think that that might be something that we'd see in the future. Players who start to fine-tune this a little bit more realize they can sneak an upgrade, they can avoid not dying, and then once they get something like 1-1 upgrades, that's when they advance forward and kill off their opponent. So let's just go ahead and take 2 more questions. I mean, technically I've only been going for 40 minutes, but I messed up and did 10 minutes of casting by myself with no one listening because it didn't connect properly to live stream. So let's just take a few more questions. What are some of these? I mean, people are asking me some questions about StarCraft 2 in general, but I want to focus on this game. Deflam says, why are tanks not used in any matchup? Will it just take time for it to catch on to find a good use for them, or do you think that they are like the scout of StarCraft 1? Well, first of all, if you've played any 2v2v2v2s on BGH, you'll know that the scout is a very powerful unit. But in particular, the tank in StarCraft 2, it's tough to get in a lot of circumstances, and you need a lot of them to be effective. So I was actually practicing a bunch with Jinro this morning, and I managed to barely win 1 game out of like 50 or something like that. So we both, so he opened up with a very fast, 1 barracks fast expo. I opened up with a barracks and a reactor and did a rush with 7 Marines, and then I expanded, lifted the barracks, got a tech lab for it and a factory, and then I lifted the barracks again and landed it back on the reactor and landed the tank, on the tech lab, the factory on the tech lab so I could start getting tanks. And I was able to stay alive. I got a bunker, which I eventually salvaged, and I got my expo up, and I was feeling good, but the problem is he gets those 4 barracks for, the double reactor, double tech lab. He gets that kind of army going so quickly that he gets complete and total map control. And if I'm not super ultra crazy careful with all of my tank positioning, he just runs up and kills them with Marauders. So in the end, I barely won because I held on for a really long time. And even though he took the whole map, I just had a decent tank Thor combination against his Banshee Thor Marine Marauder combination. And honestly, I think if he didn't get so many Vikings, he just would have straight up killed me. So that's something that is a really big deal, which is how you go about getting the map control. Because in StarCraft 1, you could get tanks to defend yourself, but they were cheap enough that you could get away with building a few of them at the start. But then you had the vultures, so that way you could go around and harass a bunch. So I think that the big key is less going to be how do I just get tanks in general, and more of what units give me enough time and resources to let me get tanks in the first place. And I'm still trying to experiment around with that. But for now, I'm going to be Marine Maraudering away. And you know what? With that, my throat's kind of hurting, and I don't want to be too hard on it, because that's why I was out of commission for like 2 weeks. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up Day 9 Daily number 87. I'm going to put number 86 up on demand, so you guys can check out that Terran vs. Protoss. You can also get to hear the special cameo by my girlfriend. And also the Zotac number 4 Cup. That VOD is going to be coming up in a little bit. So yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.